right? So when it comes to UI development, either you can go for Javafx or else you can go for Swing. Okay, good in Swing programming, and if you have already done quite a bit of Swing programming, this is not a big thing. This is very easy. But if you haven't done much Swing programming, of course this is going to be a little bit complicated thing for you. Okay, so therefore first you must be really good in Swing programming before coming to Javafx. So that is why we did Swing before. Okay, right. So what is Javafx? Javafx is a library that used to develop desktop applications as well as rich internet applications. So that means you can develop web applications also using Javafx. But we are not going to cover that part. We are going to cover only how to use Javafx to develop desktop applications. That is something like an alternative for Swing. So Swing is one option. The other option is Javafx. Okay, right. So when it comes to Javafx, there are a few concepts and which are some not there in Swing. Some of the features are there in Swing, but some features are new. So there are a lot of concepts are there. So therefore, don't worry too much. Don't try to master everything. Just try to get the feeling of it first. Okay, right. So there's a concept called Fxml, where we can use Fxml. It's something like HTML to lay out the UI. Now it's Java Swing, there's nothing like that, right? So here, just like anyway we haven't done the HTML for you. HTML will be covered in your semester 2. So but most of you know what is HTML is. Using tags, we can similarly you can lay out your screens, forms also in when you are using Javafx. But we are not going to use that feature much because it's advanced feature. Then there's something called Scene Builder, which will generate the Fxml for you, right? So therefore you don't have to use Fxml if you are not very familiar with Fxml, because Scene Builder will do it. Then there's a web view, that is if you are creating a rich internet application, RIA, this is going to be very useful, but we are not going to cover that also, right? So then there are built-in UI controls like buttons, text boxes, check boxes, etc. Okay, so that is similar to the Swing components, right? J buttons, etc. Then when it comes to styling, right, colors, shades, etc., there's a CSS like styling. In web development we have the two technologies, HTML and CSS. So here also we can style it using CSS like way. Again, it's optional. If you don't want CSS like styling, you can just straight away style as well. And then of course Swing interoperability is there. That means we can use Javafx inside Swing applications as well. So if Swing does not provide a particular feature, if Javafx support it, you can embed your Javafx code or components to Swing as well. And of course there's something called Canvas API, where you can do some drawing, something like Flash. Okay, something like Flash. So that kind of things you can do using Canvas API, right? We are not going to cover everything. We are going to cover some of those things, and some of those things we are going to just touch it, just gentle introduction only. Okay, right. So now when we develop Swing programs, so Swing UI, we just had everything in the JDK. We didn't have to, or we don't have to configure or download anything, add something, no, nothing. Just built in, it was there, right? Swing is part of the JDK, but Javafx is not part of the JDK. So therefore you have to separately configure and add some libraries in order to run your Javafx applications. Okay, so because Javafx is not part of the JDK. Okay, it's external library, but again from the Oracle, right? But it is they take it as a separate thing, because not every application need Javafx. They have taken it separately so that their JDK is sort of a minimum. Okay, so which is good anyway, because not every application need Javafx support. Okay, right. And here I have explained how to configure your IntelliJ environment to use or run Javafx applications. If you are using some other IDE, because I know that some of you are using Eclipse, some of you are using NetBeans, so then you have to refer to the relevant documentation or do a Google search. You have to spend little bit time, of course, because there will be some issues that you have to dig into and find a solution. So you have to follow the documentation, because I don't have time to show you how to do it for each and every IDE. I have been using IntelliJ from the beginning, so therefore I will be explaining how to do it for IntelliJ. So if you are using other things, just refer to their documentation and internet. You should be able to find a way how to run it. Okay, right. And there's a third option, that is command line. Also you can do it, but it needs little bit more configurations as well. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is go to the Open Javafx IO website. So that is a separate website, and you have to download the Javafx library. Okay, so you can go to the OpenFX. Okay, let's open it in different folder. So this is the website. So from there you can download the Javafx. So it has a documentation and other things. Okay, and some tutorials are also there. So from there you can, some sample applications are also there. So from there you can download the Javafx. So exact link is also given here. Okay, so finally you will be, now you have to go to this particular page if you directly want to go there. Okay, right, so this is the direct line. I will be adding the link to the WhatsApp group. Okay, so this is the page where you have to download it. So there you can see Javafx and IntelliJ, right? And similarly you have Javafx and Javafx and NetBeans, etc. Okay, Javafx and Eclipse. So you have to refer to the relevant documentation. So I am referring to the Javafx and IntelliJ, and referring to this one I have prepared your note. Okay, Javafx and IntelliJ. So it's based on this documentation. Okay, right. So the first thing you want to do is first you want to create a project. Okay, first you have to download this. So obviously you have to download it. Right. So from there you have to go to the Javafx IntelliJ section. There you have the Javafx IntelliJ non-modular from IDE, download Javafx Sdk. Okay, so where is that? Javafx non-modular IDE, where is that? Right, non-modular from IDE, right, non-modular from IDE. So then you will see something called download Javafx Sdk. See whether you have that. Yeah, download the appropriate Javafx Sdk. Okay, so you have to use this particular link. Okay, so then you can download the Javafx Sdk. So you can download the latest one. Okay, you can download the latest release is 19. Right, latest release is 19. Or you better download the stable one. Okay, so something like 17. Okay, because that is September version. So these are, anyway, these are not yet published. So you can download the 17. Okay, it's a zip file. So I have downloaded it, and let's see what is my version. I have the 16. I have 16 and it's working for me. So therefore you can also, if you have any trouble, try to download the 16, because 16 is working for me, right? 16th version is working for me. So because then you are more confidence. So you better, if you have any issues, at least download the 16th version. Okay, I have downloaded the IntelliJ 16th version, and also I have JDK 1.5, and it is working for me. But it may work for other versions as well, but it is working for JDK 1.5 and or JDK 15 and IntelliJ Javafx. What I have downloaded is the 16th version, Open Javafx 16th. Okay, right, it's working for me, but it doesn't mean that automatically it will work for you. And some of you have already sent me some screenshots saying that they are having issues, but I'm again explaining you so that you can figure it out what are the possible issues are. Okay, right, so that is the first thing you want to do, download the Javafx Sdk. Okay, right, so once you download the Javafx Sdk, right, you can unzip it. If it, right, I think it's a zip file. Yes, you have to unzip it, right? You have to unzip the file so that you get something like this. Okay, and this is where we will be adding to your IntelliJ project. So you will be adding this lib folder to the IntelliJ, and it has some Java files. Okay, right. So you can do it parallelly with me also if you are right now doing, and if you have Javafx, okay, sorry, IntelliJ, right? Right. So now what you have to do is create a new project, right? Create a new project. Say file, new project, right? Now you have downloaded and unzip it. Now you are creating a project, right? So here make sure, usually we use Java in our other applications, even Swing application, but here you have to select Javafx, right? And make sure you have the correct JDK, your latest JDK, and here you select Javafx application. Okay, Javafx application, right? So then you say next, you give your name to your project, whatever the name you want. Okay, say Javafx Saturday, and you just say finish. Okay, so that is your step number 1. Still you can't run it. Okay, so you will have under src folder, there will be a package called sample. There you have 2 classes and Fxml file. Remember, Fxml is I mentioned about Fxml. You can lay out using something like HTML, right? So that Fxml file is also there. Okay, right. So but you can't still run it, right? If you try to run your main class, you will get error, and of course it is not compiling also, because still we haven't add the library, the Javafx library, these classes, right? So these classes and these packages are, some of these packages are in the Javafx library, which is not part of the JDK, standard JDK. Okay, so that is why it is giving compile errors. So therefore you can't run it yet. Right, now what you have to do is, so everything is clearly mentioned in the note, right? So now you have to go to, now you have created the project, go to file, project structure. Okay, file, project structure. Now this must be your active project. Okay, file, project structure, then go to libraries tab, then say add. There's a plus mark here, add Java. When you click on add, there will be sub menu Java, right? So then you have to browse to, now you have downloaded and unzip your Javafx SDK. In my case, I have downloaded it to project called software. In your case it will be different path. Under software I have Javafx, and this is my unzip folder. There you have to go to the lib folder. Once you unzip that zip file, you will have the lib folder, right? You have to unzip and go to the lib folder. Okay, unzip folder structure lib, and you just say okay. Okay, so your Javafx unzip. Once you unzip, you have the lib folder. You have to show the lib folder. Okay. Right, so then it will pick up those things, and you just have to say okay, and it will say that we are going to add those into your project. You just say okay, right? Then you will see Javafx libraries are there, because these library files have these classes and packages. Okay, so that is the step number 1. Okay, right, now this should not be read, because now it knows these classes and other things, because those things were there in the those library files. Okay, so that is number 1. Okay, right, number 2 is now go to the run. Then you have something called edit configuration, right? Edit configuration. So there we have application main, right? Application main. Now here in the VM options you have to add a code, right? You have to add a code. So what you have to do is you have to copy this and paste it. Of course, in your file you will not be able to copy paste it because it's flattened. So therefore I have posted it to your WhatsApp group, both the WhatsApp groups, right? So this one, okay, I have already posted it for both pages, this one, but you have to change the path, right? So the path according to your one, because in my case D software Javafx OpenJDK blah blah blah, then lib. So you have to show the path correctly according to your one, right? So you have to change this according to your folder where you have unzipped to the lib folder. Then you have to copy this and copy this in your notepad or whatever. Then you have to paste it to the VM option, right? VM option. So in my case the path is correct, right? So that is the step number 2. Don't change anything else, right? But have that VM option. Okay, say okay. Still for some of you now you should be able to run the main class. Okay, some of you, right? Now I am getting error still. Now if you can run the main class, right click on the main, or click here if you have opened the main class and say run main, and see whether you are getting a small window. If you are getting a small window, you are done, right? But I am not getting that. I am getting error. Okay, I am getting error. So it says bad class blah blah blah, class files has wrong versions. In my case it says 55.0 should be 52. If you don't get this kind of error, now you are done. Okay, your configuration is over. If you get this kind of error, of course not other type of error, something like this wrong version error, you have to do this. That is, right, everything is mentioned here, right? So if you are getting this, that is fine, something like hello world. But if you are getting this error, or version number can be somewhat different, but if you get something like this, again you have to go to the file configurations. Okay, file project structure, go to the modules. Okay, go to the modules. Now here you have under modules source, right? So there you have drop down project language level. So there you have to select it to 11. Okay, so there you have to set it to 11. If it is not 11 yet, okay, set it to 11. This has to be done only if you are getting that error. Okay, 11. right? So then you say, now you have set it to 11 and say okay. Okay, now you run it. If you are getting this error, most probably now you must not be getting that error. Now you can again run it. I got the window. So if you are getting this window, now your IntelliJ is configured to run Javafx application, compile and Javafx application. So this is just a blank window, right? Right. So that is the first thing you want to do, right? Of course, if you are getting any errors, best thing is you do look at the error message and maybe get a unique error message and do a Google search saying Javafx error or something in IntelliJ. Okay, so then you will get a lot of help from especially Stack Overflow. I hope now you know what is Stack Overflow site is. So they have a lot of threads going on helping others how to get over these kind of errors. Okay, because if you are getting an error, don't think that you are the first person who are getting that error. So there can be hundreds of people who have already got that error and they have discussed that and someone has suggested the solution to that. So therefore you are not alone. So just keep looking for help from the internet, right? And of course if nothing is working, but just put a message to the group as well. Right, don't put message to me, just put up a message to the group, because the group, there are so many people, right? So many students are there, so they may have encountered the issue and they may have solution, right? So I am a single person, your group is more resourceful than me, right? So of course if it is not resolved there also, you can put the message to me also, or if you don't like to show your error message to others, you can just put it to me. Okay, right? Because so why I am asking you to put it into the group, because that is the culture we are expecting in software development, right? So in software development it's a teamwork, right? So it's not individual work. Okay, so everyone has to get help from others, everyone has to help others. So we need to have that culture if you are learning IT. Okay, right? So now I hope you got it. Some of you have already configured it, some of you are having maybe few issues still, which you should be able to configure or resolve it by yourself, or get help from others, or just ask from me, right? Of course if I am not getting that error in my environment, sometimes I can't help you much also, right? So therefore you have to get the help from someone who has got that error. Okay, because my JDK version may not be your JDK version, my IntelliJ version may not be your IntelliJ version, so likewise there can be, right? So therefore best thing is ask from others, right? Not from just single person this kind of errors, because they can help. Because in this batch 1 also, I saw that in the group some of them has got errors which I never got, but some other students has found solutions and they had given the suggestion, and then the other students say okay, it worked. Okay, right. Now we are done with configuration and stuff like that. Now let's start discuss the basic or the concept behind Javafx, and let's create a small Javafx application. Okay, right. So at first you may find that this is little bit complicated, because that is because you are not yet familiar, right, with the Javafx. Once you're familiar with Javafx, it is not a big thing. Okay, it is not a big thing, but there's a learning curve. It will take maybe 1 week, maybe 1 month, maybe few months to get the concepts, right, absorbed into your brain, right, your mind. So therefore yes, be patient. Things will absorb little bit slowly, because this is somewhat complicated technology. Okay, so that is why they didn't ask any question last year also, because they know that this is not something that you can learn overnight. So you need practice and stuff like that, but once you understand the concept, right, everything is okay. And even some other languages, they also have similar concept. Therefore once you learn Javafx, you can easily use that knowledge to build UI based applications in languages like Python, C Sharp, etc. Because they also have pretty much these concepts. Okay, right. And also JavaFX is the new framework. Java Swing has been there for more than 20 years now. Right. I think they started in 1990s. Right now 2020, not more than 20 years. Java Swing has been there for more than 30 years. But JavaFX has a short period. Now I think it's about 10 years. I think or less than 10 years. So therefore JavaFX is a new, relatively new framework. So therefore it has more modern concepts. At the same time, it has less documentation, less examples, etc. as well, because people have used it for lesser period. So that is why it's a little bit difficult to learn JavaFX, because you have less number of tutorials, etc. But at the same time, because JavaFX has more features, you will find it little bit complicated at the beginning. But once you understand the concept, it is not of course it is more complicated than Java Swing, but it is not impossible thing to learn. Okay, right. So therefore, first you have to understand the concept thoroughly before digging to the coding, right? Serious coding. Okay, right. So let's see what are the concepts behind JavaFX. So when it comes to JavaFX application, the main concepts are the concept called stage, concept called scene, and concept called nodes. So those who have done Flash programming, Flash or the Flex programming level, not as just drag and drop, they are little bit familiar with this terminology. Okay, the stage, scene, and nodes. Okay, so inside the stage you can have different scenes. Inside a scene you have nodes. So nodes are pretty much UI components, etc. It's something like a drama, or the terminology is coming from the drama. Okay, right. So your node can be shapes, right? 3D shapes, widgets, UI widgets, etc. Okay, right. So at least you must have one stage, right? One stage. You can have multiple stage, but most of the time one stage is enough for one application. Okay, because you are not going to have multiple stages in a one application usually. And when you are developing application, you get a default stage called primary stage, and most of the time this primary stage is good enough for you to develop your system. Okay, and the stage is represented by is in the stage class of JavaFX stage package. Now remember, this JavaFX stage package is in that library that you added. Okay, that is why we got some errors at the beginning. Okay, right. So all the JavaFX related things are in the package called JavaFX, and there are sub packages. Okay, right. So by default you have something called primary stage, which is good enough for most of the applications. Okay, so then you have the scenes. So scenes are something like forms, etc. Forms, dialog box, etc. Right. So at different times you may have different scenes in your application. Okay, different scenes in your application. So basically what you are going to do is develop these scenes. So develop these scenes means something like in Swing programming terminology, creating some JFrames, etc. Okay, JFrames, J dialog boxes, etc. So then your scene will have nodes. So nodes are something like your buttons, text boxes, and things like that, drop down boxes, etc. And your scene will have set of nodes, and these nodes will be interconnected as a graph, and we call it scene graph. Right? Scene graph. Right. So we will be discussing that later. And the scene graph will have the terminal nodes or the leaf nodes, and also intermediary nodes, and this is called the root node. Okay, right. So then again we have the concept called layout. Remember, in Swing programming we had concept called layout, the border layout, stack pane layout, right? So stuff like that were there. So here also we have the concept called layouts. We will be discussing what are the possible different type of layouts available in Javafx. Right, now first we are going to create a, now you have some idea about how the Javafx application looks. Now let's create a simple hello world Javafx application. But in order to do that, you have to make sure that you can run this main class without any error. So then only you can do the rest of the stuff practically. Otherwise, you have to fix that issue. Okay, right. Right. So now if you look at this particular class, main class, which they have given to you as a sort of example, right? You can see that it has extends from a class called application. So application is in the, it's a class in Javafx application package. Okay. So then you can see that there's a method called start, and you have the main method. In the main method, they have called a method called launch. Of course, there's no method called launch here because the method called launch is in the super classes of the application class. Okay, or the main class. So if you want, you can just go application. So application is an abstract class. So there you have the this method called launch. You can see, so you are just calling that static method. Okay, so you don't have method called launch, but you can just call it because it is in the super class. Okay, super class. And also here you have code method called start. So you have method called start, you are calling a method called launch. So when you call the launch, your JDK is going to call the start. Okay, so that is how it works. So therefore you don't directly call it. And when it comes to now for the batch 2 students, we did thread programming for you. Now in thread programming also we do the same thing. We call the start method and then we have to override the run method, right? So the run method will be called, but we just call the start method. So internally run method will be called. So same thing, we call the launch method, we override the start method. So when you call the launch method, your JDK will call the start method. Okay, because it has to do for certain background tasks, then it will be called in the start method. Okay, so that is the idea. Right. Right, now let's create a Javafx application from the beginning. Right, so let's not rely on this particular class. We are going to create a fresh Javafx class. Of course, if you want, you can just delete these files as well, but just keep it. Right, so we are not going to use these classes. We are going to create a fresh application. Okay, so go to the src folder, right click and say new Java class, just a Java class. Now we have already created a Javafx application, not a Java application, Javafx application. Just create a new Java class. You have to give it a name. I am giving the same name because then I don't have to copy paste a lot of things. I will call it hello app. Right, it's just a class and say okay. Okay, just like any other class. Okay, right. So now we are going to do one thing, that is we are going to extend our hello app class by application class, which is a Javafx class. Okay, we are going to extend our hello app class by class called application extends, just like our frame class we used to extend from JFrame. Similar concept. Okay, extends application. Right. So you have to import the proper one, Javafx application class, not the com.su blah blah blah, Javafx application class. Okay, Javafx application. Now obviously it is giving you errors because if you look at the application class, it's abstract class. So if there are abstract methods, you have to implement that, right? You have to implement that. So that is why you are getting these errors, right? And here you can see that these are, you don't have to implement because these are static methods, right? This is a constructor, right? You can see there's a method called init, of course, which is not abstract method. It is optional for you to subclass override, but there's an abstract method called start. Now if you haven't understood the object oriented, now you are in trouble. Remember we discussed about abstract methods, right? If you subclass a class which is having abstract methods, you must override abstract methods, or you must declare your class also as a abstract class. Now you can see that there's abstract method called start, so therefore you must override this particular method, otherwise you will be getting errors, right? See whether are there any other abstract methods.
Recording in progress.
Okay, sorry, I got disconnected. I'm connected back. So no other abstract methods are there, right? So therefore just minimum you have to override the init method. Okay, init method, right? Sorry, start method. So just copy that start. I will just copy it, okay, and I'm going to paste it here. So every line you have to write with proper understand, okay? That is why we did object oriented programming very seriously, right? So again I'm importing the stage from the Javafx because it's referring to the stage class, and it throws an exception also. That is fine. Now I have to have the curly bracket, and now I don't have to say abstract because I'm overriding it. Now you can see no errors. Why? We have overridden the start method, right? Start method, which is abstract method in application class. Okay, so that is the second step you have to do. You extend the application class, override the start method. Still I haven't written anything, but at least you have to write the method signature. Okay, right? So that is our step number 2. Okay, right? So now let's add something, because still it has nothing, right? It's still like it has nothing. And also we are going to create a main method then call the launch method. I told you that we will be overriding the start method, but we will be calling the launch method. Okay, so when we call the launch method, your JDK will call the start method. That is the idea. Okay, so therefore let's have a main method then call the launch. Let's have main method PSVM. Right, so we have to call the launch method, which is in the super class, right? And also it's overloaded version. So usually you can send these args to that one because it is overloaded to have string array, right? You can see the launch method is in the application class. It is expecting a string arguments. Okay, so don't think too much about this. So this is something called variable arguments, which we didn't cover much in your class because it is a little bit advanced concept. Okay, but anyway that method is there. Okay, so we just call it. Okay, right, now we have a simple application, but unfortunately it has nothing, right? Nothing in it. But anyway you can run it and see are you getting any errors. It won't show you anything yet, right? You can see it is not showing you anything because still you haven't done anything. Okay, but you don't get any error, right? So don't worry about this. This is just a warning message. Okay, warning message, it's not error. Okay, right. So that is, now you have a class, extend the application class, you override the start method, and in your main method you call the launch method. Launch method is something in the application. Your super type has a launch method called launch, which you can call. And launch is a static method, therefore you can just call it from static class main method. Okay, right. So now we have done some stuff. Right. If you have any questions on this, you have to ask. Right. So this is what you are supposed to do at the beginning. Okay. Just like so. Yes.
Sir, are me launch method taking start method එකට යන්නේ කොහොමද?
ඔය එක JDK එක කරන වැඩක්. ඒක යන විදිය අපිට එළියට පේන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක අපි launch method එක call කරාම JDK එක තමයි ඇතුලෙන් call කරන්නේ වාගේ start method එක. ඒක ඒගොල්ලෝගේ ඇතුලේ classes වලින් කරලා තියෙන වැඩක්. හරි. ඒක අපිට visible නැහැ. ඒක එහෙම තමයි මේ මොකේද thread programming වලත් එහෙමයි. අපි call කරනවා start method එක, ඒගොල්ලෝ call කරනවා run method එක. මොකද ඇතුලේ කරන්න ඕන වැඩ ටික කරලා ඉවරලා තමයි ඒගොල්ලෝ අපේ start method එක call කරන්නේ. අපිට start method එක call කරනවාද කියලා ඕනනම් බලන්න පුළුවන් s out එකක් දාලා.
සර් method දෙකම දෙන application class එකේ.
Sorry?
මේ start method එකයි load method එකයි දෙකම දෙන්නේ application කියන class.
ඔව්. හරි, ඒ වුණාට මේක දැන් වෙන වෙන කතන්දර යනවනේ මේ ඇතුලේ methods ඇතුලේ. ඒ වයින් තමයි ඒක inject වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. මේකේ launch method එක මෙතන ඒක තමයි call කරේ. හරි. launch එක තමයි call කරේ. launch එක ඇතුලෙන් තමයි ඒගොල්ලෝ start එක call කරන්නේ. අස්සේ බලන්න මේ class එකක් අස්සට ගිහිලා අස්සකින් තමයි call කරන්න ඇති. බලන්න කොහේ හරි class එකක් call කරන්න ඇති ඇතුලේ. මේ මෙතන ඒගොල්ලෝ මේ එක එක classes load කරනවා. ඒ classes වල තමයි ඔක ඇත්තේ. හරි, ඔක අස්සේ කොහේ හරි ඇත්තේ ඔයාලට ගියොත් එimhe සමහරට හොයාගන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඉඩ තියෙනවා. හරි, කොහේ හරි අස්සක ඇති ඔක කෝල් කරන්න ඇති. හරි, ඩිරෙක්ට්ලි අපිට පේන්නේ නැහැ මෙතෙන්ට කෝල් කරනවා. මොකද මෙතන මේ එක එක classes load කරනවා. මේ get class names කී එහෙම load කරන්නේ ඒ class එක තමයි ඔක ඇත්තේ. library එක තමයි ඔක ඇත්තේ කොහේ හරි. මේක calling class name කියලා එහෙම තියෙන්නේ. ඔයින් එක ඇතුලේ ඔය code එක ඇති. ඔයාලට මේ Google search එකක් දැම්මොත් ඔක හොයාගන්න පුළුවන් වෙයි සමහරවිට. හරියටම method call එක යන්නේ මෙහෙමයි කියලා. හරි, කවුරු හරි explain කරලත් ඇති. right, මම පොඩි hi එකක් විතරක් දැම්මා. run වෙනවද බලමු. ඊට පේනද hi එක ආවා. ඒ කියන්නේ so when we call the launch method JDK call the start method. Okay, so that is why we got the hi. Okay, right. Right, now we want to build something because it is still not displaying anything. Okay, it's not displaying anything. So what we can do is, so first you will not understand everything, but gradually we are going to explain. I'm going to explain each and everything just like your swing programming. Right, so first we are going to create. Now we have, I told you that you need to have stage. Now you can see that the start method has a parameter which is a stage, right, which is a stage, and they by default they call it primary stage. Usually this is your stage, right, this is your stage, and this stage is good enough for most of the application. You don't have to create your own stages. Usually one application will have one stage, many scenes, and each scene have many nodes. That is how it works. So therefore primary stage is good enough for us. Okay, right, now what we are going to do is, now we have a stage. What we are going to do is we are going to create a scene. Right, we are going to create a scene. Remember, stage has scene and scene has different nodes. Okay, so how to create a scene? You have to create a scene object. That scene object, again you have to import the scene class. So the scene class is in scene package, Javafx scene package. There's a class called scene, so that you have to import now. Okay, that you have to import just like the stage. now okay, now the scene is expecting the constructor expect. Now if you go there, it is expecting some parameters, right? So don't think too much about this because there are so many parameters which are, right? So expect like a parent, okay, something like a parent. So that parent must be a layout, okay. So that parent must be a layout. There are different layouts that we will be discussing pretty soon, like layout sorry, we are going to discuss these layouts separately, right? Javafx layout. So here we have border pane, flow pane, grid pane, etc., stack pane, right? Border pane, flow pane, stack pane, etc. So we are going to create one of those layouts because your scene need a layout, and we are going to create a stack pane layout, okay, stack pane layout object, because your scene need a layout, right? Scene need a layout. So therefore let's create a layout, and we are going to create a stack pane layout, okay, stack pane layout, and we are going to call it root, or you can give any name. So that variable you have to give it there, okay, right? So now again stack pane is in, stack pane class is in package called Javafx scene layout package. So therefore now we have to import that also, right? So we'll be importing that also. Now we can give that layout. You can create whatever the layout you want. Here we create a stack pane layout. I will explain what is meant by stack pane layout later. So we are giving that layout to the scene. Now my scene has a layout, and also you can specify the width and height, right? Width and height, because we are not using Java the Fxml. If you are using Fxml, yes, you can use that one to specify those things, but since we are not using, we can give the width and height also, otherwise it will be using the default widths and default heights. And now I have a scene object. That scene object has a layout, and also we have specified the width and height, okay, right? Still you won't see anything when you run it, because still your stage doesn't know that what is your scene is, okay. So for that there's a method in your stage class to saying that your scene is this one, okay. So that is, there's a method called set scene, right? Set scene in the your stage class, right? In our stage class is the primary stage, because it's a parameter. It has a method called set scene. To that you have to send a scene object. Of course we have created a scene object. Now we can set there. Now I have my primary stage has a scene. That scene has a layout, okay. Scene has a layout, okay, right. Now you have to say that show, right? So you have to say to your stage, right? To your stage you have to say that show it. Just like JFrame, we have set visible true, okay. So primary stage, that is a parameter, you have to say show, okay. Now let's run and see whether we can see something now. Right, now you got a window, right, with this width and height. If you want different width and height, you can change it also. Say you want 400 by 500. Now the width will be bigger, 400 by 500, okay. Nothing is there because we haven't added anything to the scene, right? So this is the scene, okay. And background you have the stage, right? Background you have the stage, right? So that is very simple application which is having nothing yet. Of course you can send some other things, like you can set a title, right, to your scene, etc. Let's set a title also to your stage. Say primary stage. Let's do it before showing. dot set title. Let's say hello Javafx. Now there will be title also in your scene or the stage. Right. Hello Javafx. You can maximize and you can do anything you want. Right. So that is your simple application. Still it doesn't have any labels or buttons or anything, right? So now we are going to edit. Okay, right. So now we are going to create a button. We are going to create a button just like swing, right? So I'm just copy paste because otherwise it's time consuming. Now we are going to create a button. Again you have to import. So the button is in Javafx Javafx control scene control package. Okay, right. So you create a button with text. Okay, with text. Let's just say hello world. And now we have to add this button to the scene, right? Add this button to the scene. Otherwise the scene doesn't know that we have button. So how to do that? Your layout, now remember my scene has a layout. You are going to add it to the layout, right? So the layout has a method called, for stack pane has a method called get children, and you are adding your button as another children. I told you that there's something called scene graph. We are going to add it to the scene graph by calling the get children and add. Okay, so let's do that. Now we have the root dot get children, right? Get children to there you have method called add. You are expecting a node, button is a node. When node is expected, you can send a button. So that is polymorphism. Right? Why? Now you can see add method is expecting a node. Okay. It's again you can see it's a generic class. Okay, so they have set it as a node, right? But you can send a button because button extends button base. Button base extends label, label extends control, control extends region, region extends parent, parent extends node. So therefore when you send your button. Right. Remember when pet is expected, we were right, when an animal is expected, we were able to send dog. Remember? We told you that the open close principle. So now this is open close principle is used. Now I have button which is added to the your layout. Okay, now your button should be there. Okay, button should be there. Let's run it and see now. Right. So by default your button will be in the center. That we'll be discussing when we are doing the layout. Okay. But of course no event handling, but now we have a UI part as well, right? No event handling yet. Okay, right? So once you do the event handling, it's pretty much a application, right? So then you build different forms, etc., depending on your requirement. Okay, right? So that is sort of a minimum application you can create. Okay, minimum application. Of course now I'm not going to use this, right? So now you can see that we have created the layout, we have created a button, we have added the button to the layout, right? Stack pane layout. Then we have created a scene giving that layout and width and height. Then we have set that scene as the scene of the primary stage or the stage, and we have set a title to the stage, and we have asked it to show now. That's it, right? So but we are calling the launch method. When we call the launch method, your JDK call the start method. Okay, start method. Right. Right, now we are going to have a simple event handling. Remember, when it comes to swing development, depending on the listener, right, whether we want to listen to the button click events, whether we want to listen to the mouse events, keyboard events, we had to implement a particular listener interface, either our class or as an anonymous object or in a separate class. So here also we have the same concept, right? Same concept, but here mostly we go for the anonymous class concept because anonymous class concept is the easiest way to do it. So therefore here most of the time we will be developing it as a using the event handling will be done using the anonymous class concept because event handling is sort of one-time code which we are not going to reuse in other forms or other scenes, etc. Only your scene will be using that. There is nothing called reusability there. So therefore we will be almost all the time going for anonymous classes. Okay, right, now let's do that also. Okay, so then we have small event handling also. Now we are going to handle the click event of the button. Now we have button, so it's very easy. You don't have to implement an interface or whatever when you are doing the using the anonymous class object. So now what we are going to do is, now we are having a button, right? So we are going to say that our button one, it has a method called set on action, right? Set on action. Okay, so it is expecting, if you go there, it is expecting an event handler, right? Event handler. So what is event handler? Event handler is the interface, right? Event handler is the interface. So therefore we have to create an object that implements the event handler, right? That implements the event handler here, right? Or else you need to have separate object somewhere. We are going to do on the fly. We are going to create an anonymous object that implements the event handler. Okay, that implements the event handler. So how to do that, right? So you can just say new, right? New, we need event handler, right? So to that again it is, now if you go there, now event handler is expecting a generic thing. Of course generics I did for the batch 2, but I didn't do the generics for the batch 4. So batch 4 students, you may not that familiar with the concept of something like this code, but batch 2 students must be familiar with this thing, right? Generics, we are setting the exact type only at the runtime, at this time, right? So it's another very powerful concept in object orientation. So we decide what is this class is, okay, because it's open. It says you tell me which type is. So we are going to say, but it has to be an event. It has to be event. Okay. So now we are going to say what is that. Okay. So in our case, we are going to say it's an action event because it's a button. Okay. Event handler, new event handler, and we are going to have an action event. Okay. So this already it's there. Therefore, I'm going to reuse it. Then it will write the relevant method. Right. You can see it's action event we are injecting. So if it is action event, now event handler has a method called, interface has a method called handle. We have to implement the handle method, and that handle method has the same parameter as what you specify here. So what we have specified here is action event. So therefore you are also getting action event, right? Your handle method is getting action event. Okay. So that is generics. So I didn't do the generics yet to the semester, the batch 4, right? So they just have to wait. You will fully understand this maybe next class. Of course, I'm going to have few more extra classes for you. There we will be doing the generics pretty soon. Okay, right. Right. So now this is your event handling method, right? Event handling method. Now if you have s out or something, now again I know some of you may find this sort of intimidating. Intimidating can නිකන් වදින්න නැති ගතියක් දැනේ. ඒක ඔයාලට නෙමෙයි අපිටත් එහෙමයි ඉස්සෙල්ලම Javafx ඉගෙන ගනිද්දි. හරි මාසයක් දෙකක් තුනක් සමහරට මාස 7-8ක් ගියාම තමයි මේක හොඳට වදින්න පටන් ගන්න. ඒකත් එක්ක වැඩ කරන කට්ටියට දැන් ඔක ඔළුවේ process වෙනවා ටික ටික. හරි. Right, let's say hi and see whether now the event is firing. Right. Because now we are setting it to the button 1. Right. Javafx වලට චුට්ටයි වෙනස් sorry. Only slight change from swing. Swing එකේ කරෙත් මේ වගේ වැඩක් තමයි. මේ වගේ generics පාවිච්චි කරේ. නෑ හරි. Let's run it. ඉතින් මේ generics වල ආවට පස්සේ මේවා ආවේ swing develop කරන කාලේ generics තියුන්නේ නැහැ. ඒකන්ද ඒගොල්ලෝ ඒව දැම්මේ නැහැ. ඒව දාන්න බෑ ඒගොල්ලන්ට. ඒ කාලේ generics කියන concept එක තියුන්නේ නැහැ. Javafx එනකොට generics ඇවිල්ලා. හරි. So therefore they use it. Right now let's see. Event එක 5 වෙනි high gear. Right. Now we can see that the event is firing. Now we are getting the event. Okay. Now we are getting the event. It's very simple. Right. Once you understand the concept, of course you must know what is interface, you must know what is anonymous class object, and you must know a little bit about what is generics. Right. So then you can understand this perfectly. Okay. Right. So now we have event handling also. Right. So now gradually we are building a simple application. Okay. Right. So that is your first exposure into the Javafx programming. Right. First exposure into Javafx programming. Just one class, nothing else. Okay, I will be putting it to the WhatsApp groups as well, so that you can, if you have proper environment set up, now you can run this. Right, because right, you can copy paste and run it also, because all the imports are also there. Right, right. So that is a simple Javafx application, or very simple sort of hello world application, but it has everything sort of a we have the stage, we have a scene, to the scene we have set up a layout, to the layout we have added widget, and we are doing some event handling also. Okay, right. Okay, so we'll take a small break. After the break we will be discussing some other concepts, life cycle methods, and other layouts and other concepts. Okay, so today we are going to finish as much as possible, so that tomorrow may be just a small session only. Okay, right. Right, so there are some life cycle methods in your Javafx application. So we already use the method called start. So start is just one of the life cycle method. Other than start method, there are few more life cycle methods in the application class, and some of those we already saw, and they have the default implementation. Therefore it is not a must to override those. So you can see there's something called right, init method is there, right, start method is there, so likewise. Okay, right. So what are the life cycle methods? Init method, start method, stop method, right? And we have been using, right, we are using the start method only, right? So now let's see why they have given 3 methods. Right, we are using the start method. Okay, other than the start method you have the init method and the stop method. So init method is used if you want to do some initialization of your stage, you can do it. Okay, so usually it's a one-time sort of initializations, like if you want to get database connections and stuff like that, this is one of the best place to code your write your code. Okay, then first thing is the init method. Okay, first thing is the init method. So then start method is called after the init method. Okay, so whenever application begins, the start method can be called and this is something abstract method, therefore you must override this. So this is not abstract method. If you don't have to do anything, initializations, of course you can just omit it, you don't have to override it, but if you want, you can override it. Then always init method will be called before the start method. Okay, and finally you have the stop method. So that is where you want to do some cleanup. If it is if you take database connections, maybe you want to release those database connections and stuff like that, then you can override the stop method as well. Okay, right. So let's override those two methods at least by just having system out println. Okay, so just to see whether they are getting called. Right. So let's say public void. So this is our start method. Let's say init. Init. Is it init? In. Yeah, init. And the next one is stop. Just call it init, and let's have another method called stop. So basically we are overriding. So that is at the end it will be called. You have to make sure that exact method signature is there, otherwise it is not overriding. So let's double check whether init and stop have the exact method signature. Yes, public void init and throws exception. Another one is public void stop throws exception. We'll throw the exception also, but anyway, it may not be a must, but let's throw the exceptions also. Right, now let's see whether these are getting called. I'm again running. Right, you can see init is called. Of course, we don't have any system out in our main start method, so therefore you can't see. But anyway, start whatever we have done in the start is there, and of course the event handling. And let's see whether when we close, are we getting the stop method being called. Yes, stop method is also called. So therefore those are the good places to do in the initializations and the cleanup. Okay, init method for initializations and stop method for any cleanup work. Okay, right. So that is something we have additionally in your application class, because your application class have those methods. You can override it, and again you don't have to call it. It will be automatically called by the Javafx framework. Okay, right. Right. So now let's discuss a little bit more things about our application. Some more concept, because now you have idea, now you have the hands-on coding experience as well. So now because if I keep telling the theory without you coding, right, or you looking at the code, you will not get it. Now we have learned little bit of theory, little bit of coding. Now again we are going to little bit of theory, and again coming back to little bit of coding. So that is what we are going to do, right? Because we want to study this very quickly without wasting our time. Okay, right. So I told you that now you are already familiar with the concept called the stage, and stage can have scenes, and to the stage you can set what is your scene is, and of course the scene has the nodes, and we just had one node, button node. You can have any number of nodes, and nodes can have sub nodes and stuff like that. That is how it goes, and that is called the scene graph, right? Scene graph. Your scene graph can have the UI controls like button, checkbox, etc. Your scene graph can contain some containers like layouts, right? To that layouts you can add these, and of course you can have media elements like audio, video, images. So those are also there, right? So therefore this is very versatile. And of course you can have sort of a canvas where you can draw circles, rectangles, and not only that, you can have some animations also. Okay, animations like like flash animations, right? So this is a very comprehensive framework. Okay, right. So then there are a few more concepts which are not directly related to us, right? So this Javafx framework has a component called Prism, which is, because this is heavily the graphic related thing, right? So that is why we have even audio, video. So you can add, you can have some animations, you can add some images, etc. So therefore they have a sort of a rendering machine called Prism, which can take the maximum use of your graphic capacities, because some computers have separate graphic cards, some computers have shared graphic things. So therefore whatever the configurations, you have to closely collaborate with operating system to get the maximum resources in your computer. So those kind of things are handled by the Prism library. So library or the component, which is sort of a technical thing anyway, but you have to be aware that those kind of things are happening in the behind the scene. Okay. So then we have the web view. Actually, I have never used web view, but the idea is, if you are developing a rich client interface for a web application, as a web application, you need a testing environment. So the testing environment is called the web view. Okay, but the Javafx is not that popular as a web framework, because you are depending on the Java. That is the main reason. So the client need to have Java in order to run it. Okay, so that is why it is not much use the web view component. Okay, so then they have the media engine, which is providing some default players, etc., so that you can run it, right? You know that even the browsers have the audio players, video players these days. So similarly, if your application is having audio and video and animation, you need the player, right? So just like the Java Flash player, so Javafx framework has built-in media players so that you can run those as well without third-party plugins or third-party tools. Okay. Right, now we are moving to the Javafx layouts, because you must have a very good understanding about different layouts in order to understand Javafx applications, because you have to use the proper layout in proper places depending on your application. Okay, so we already use a layout in our application, that is the stack pane layout, which we give it to the scene. Okay, so stack pane is just one layout, right? Stack pane layout is this one, but there are some other layouts as well, like border pane, flow pane, grid pane, hbox, xvbox, etc. Okay, and some more also. This is just few I have mentioned, and all those layouts are available in Javafx scene layout package, right? Javafx scene layout border pane, Javafx scene.layout.flow pane, etc. Okay, right. So let's take one by one. Right. So this is how you create your layout. Right. So you have to create object of relevant layout class. say hbox or floor pane or whatever. Then of course if there are some properties, the properties depends on the layout, you can set those properties. Then to that layout, your layout class has a method called getChildren. It will give you the scene graph. To that you can add your individual nodes, or if you have more than one node, you can call the add-all methods, so that all of in single method you can add multiple things. If you have 10 buttons, you can, if you want to add it in a single method, you can call add-all and add all the buttons, but or else you can add individually, you can call it 10 times. Okay, add method then add-all method. And also dynamically you can remove also, right? Remove also. For example, when a button is clicked, maybe you want to remove a particular drop down, so that also can be done in event handling. Dynamically you can add widgets, nodes to your scene, or you can remove, right? You can remove as well, depending on your requirement. Okay, so for that you have the remove method. Again you have to call the getChildren. Then you have the remove method, because I think it's an inner class. So inner class, or I can't, let's see whether it's inner class or whatever. getChildren, so root getChildren will, yeah, it's observable list of node. To that node, that list you are adding, to that list you are, from that list you are removing. Okay, so that list, it's list, right? Yeah, to that list you have to add it, or from that list you can remove it, right? So that is in general what you can do. Now let's take some of the frequently used layouts. Okay, not all the layouts we are going to discuss, just to get a feeling of the layouts. We are going to discuss few of those layouts with some coding examples. Okay, so the first one is border pane. So this is pretty much like the border layout in Java Swing. Remember, we have the left, right, top, bottom, and the center, because that layout is very practical layout. If you take almost all the tools, right, we have similar layout where the top part has some stuff, of course. Now even if you take a browser, or even if you take some applications, they have that kind of a thing, right? Top part, and sometimes you have the left part, right part, and the bottom part, and the center. Okay, so therefore border pane is very useful as a sort of a main layout. Right, now let's create a simple application just to demonstrate the layout only. Okay, so I'm not going to code it from the beginning. I'm just going to copy paste and then explain it. Okay, now so far this code is this one. I'm going to put it into the WhatsApp group. Anyway, at the end I will be sharing it all, entire code. So this includes some event handling and everything. Okay, right. So I'm going to create a class called a board layout demo, new Java class. Go to src and say new Java class, say board layout demo. I will be copy pasting because otherwise it will take more time for me, because I have to do the imports also. Right, so I have import the application, scene, label, layout, entire package, and the stage. Okay, so as usual I have extend the application class of the Javafx. Then I have in the main method I have called the launch method, and of course I have overridden the start method. Okay, start method I have overridden. Now let's see what I have done. Right, I have created a border pane object, which is the border pane layout. Okay, border pane layout. It's the same as Java Swing. Okay, now we are adding some labels. Of course, I have create the label at the same time because we are not reusing it. Otherwise, we could have created the label separately and add it separately also. This is just to make it compact. Okay, so for example, I could have written like this. Right. So label, say L1 equal new label, and I can add L1 here, something like this. Okay, so this is basically doing the same thing, just to reduce the number of lines. Okay, so same thing. Okay, same thing in one line. Okay, so now I'm going to put it into the normal way. Right, otherwise you might be wondering what is this. So we can make things shorter. Right, now we have created 5 labels, and each label has some text, and we have added those labels to our border panes, top, left, right, center, and bottom, because border pane has 5 regions: top region, bottom region, left region, right region, and center region. So for the 5 regions we have added 5 labels, right? And of course, then we are creating the scene object. Now we are giving our border pane, because it is expecting a layout, and we have set the width and height also. Then we have, for the primary stage, we have set the scene as our scene, and we have called it the show. Now you can see it's not a big deal. So once you understand the concept, now it's not a big deal at all, because now you are familiar with the swing also. Right, now let's run it. Right, now you can see that this is top, this is left, because left top you have it, this is the right, and this is the bottom. Anyway, this is text is set left align, and this is the center. Okay, top, left, of course the left entire thing is not taken, because just if you add more and more, it will be appearing here. Right also, if you add more and more, it will appearing here, and the center and the bottom. So those are the main areas. Of course, the top will be most used for menus, right? And of course, if you need any tools or whatever, you can use left, right, and bottom as well. Okay, right, so that is how you work with border layout. Okay, border layout, that is the first layout that we will be discussing. Okay, right, so then we have H box or horizontal box layout. Now it's very easy. I will just first show you the code and then explain, because we have done all these layouts in Java Swing also. New Java class, Hbox layout demo. Now remember, your semester 1 is the one that you spend most of your effort. Okay, most of your effort is in semester 1. Semester 2 is, I would say, just 50% of the effort you have to put up. When it comes to level 2, level 2, level 3, you have to put very little effort. Okay, so you have to work hard in semester 1, and then of course you don't have to work hard in other semesters. ඔක තමයි අහලා ඇති මේ කතන්දරේ ජෝක් එකක් විදිහට කියනවා. ඔයා පොඩි පන්ති ඉන්නකොට කිව්වේ O level තමයි අමාරුම කියලා. ඊට පස්සේ ලොකු මහ ලොකු දෙයක් නැහැ කියලා. හරි? ඊට පස්සේ A level පන්තියේ නැහැ. එහෙම කිව්වේ නැහැ. ගොඩක් අයට කිව්වේ A level තමයි අමාරුම කියලා නේ. හරි, ගොඩක් අයට ඔයාලට කිව්වේ A level තමයි අමාරුම කියලා. මේ කතන්දරේ ඇත්ත. A level වල work load එක වැඩි. හරි? හැබැයි A level කරපු තරම් අමාරු නෑ ඔයාලට ඩිග්‍රියක් කරද්දී. ඒක තමයි ඇත්ත කතන්දරේ. හරි? A level කරපු වගේ තරම් මහන්සි වෙන්න ඕනේ නැහැ ඩිග්‍රියක් කරද්දී. ඒක තමයි ඇත්ත කතන්දරය. ඒක හන්ද A level තමයි අමාරුම කිව්ව කතන්දරේ ඇත්ත. Right? So A level is the toughest thing because it's a Sri Lankan way. You have about more than 2 years of things and tested in a few days, within few days, right? අවුරුදු දෙකක දේවල් අරන් ගිහිල්ලා ඊට පස්සේ කියනවා දැන් මේක පාඩම් කරගෙන ගිහිල්ලා කරපියව කියලා නේද? ඒක හිලා එතරම්ද අමානුෂික දෙයක්. A level ලංකාවේ A level ලා වෙන රටවල A level කරන්නේ අවුරුදු දෙකකට නෙමෙයි. AS1 AS2 කියලා පළවෙනි අවුරුද්ද කරලා විභාග තියෙනවා. ඒ ටොපික්ස් ආයි දෙවෙනි අවුරුද්ද යන්නේ. අවුරුදු දෙකක් අවුරුද්ද තියන්නේ. අපි තමයි අවුරුදු දෙකක් තිස්සේ සහ අවුරුදු සමාන 3ක ඊට පස්සේ ඔන්න විභාග තියන්නේ. හැබැයි A level තරම් ආඩ ජීවිතේ කිසිම දෙයක් ඔච්චර අමාරු වෙන්නේ නැහැ. හරි? හැබැයි ඔයාලට අමාරු වෙනවා ඔයා A level වලට වඩා අමාරු වෙනවා ඔයා ඉංජිනේරින් කරන්න ගියොත් එහෙම මෙඩිකල් කොලෙජ් ගියොත් එහෙම ඔන්න අමාරුයි. ඒක කියන්න එපයි. ඊළඟට මැත් ස්පෙෂල් එකක් එහෙම කරන්න ගියොත් එහෙම යුනිවර්සිටි එකේ අමාරුයි. හැබැයි අනිත් ඒවා අමාරු නෑ. හරි අනිත් සබ්ජෙක්ට් අමාරු නෑ. ඔයා ආර්ට් කරන්න ගියොත් එහෙම ආර්ට් ඩිග්‍රියක් කරන්න ගියොත් අමාරු වෙන්නේ කොහොමද? අර උද්ඝෝෂණය කර කර ඉන්නේ රැවුල් වාගෙන කොණ්ඩේ වාගෙන මල පෙරේතය වගේ ඉඳලා නිකම් විභාග ඩිග්‍රියක් අරගෙන එළියට එන්නේ. හරි අනිත් ඒවා එච්චර අමාරු නෑ. IT subject also not that difficult. Right? Not that difficult. And in degrees also, first year you have to put up the biggest effort. And second year, third year, fourth year, or second year, third year, you have to have very little effort. It's getting lesser and lesser. Okay, so that is the reality. So therefore, in semester 1, you have to give your best effort. From semester 2, semester 3, semester 4, you have to have lesser effort because now you have learned a lot of things. Okay, right. So let's copy paste this. Right. So I will explain again. Now I don't have to explain. You can understand this, right? So we have two buttons. Now here we have created the button separately, and we have created horizontal box layout. Okay, horizontal box layout with space in 10. Then we have a scene. We have given to the scene that horizontal box layout, and to our horizontal box layout we have add our button 1 and button 2, and of course we have set the scene of the stage, and we have called the show method. Right now we have just added the two button to our horizontal layout because it's a horizontal box. It will add as horizontally. I will show run කරාම තේරෙයි මොකද උනේ කියලා. අර වගේ උතුර දකුණ කියලා කියන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. එයා line එකට add කරගෙන යනවා. Horizontal box එකනේ දැක්කද? Horizontal box එක if you add another button it will be here. It will be here, right? So that is how it's going to work. Right? Horizontal button. So let's add one more button, two more buttons. Say BTN 3, BTN 4. හරි මේ ඇඩ් ඕල් එකේ තියෙන වාසිය දැන් මට පේන්න ඕන. හරි. හතර පාරක් කරන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. මට පුළුවන් ඕන ගානක් ඇඩ් කරගෙන යන්න. ඒකද ඇඩ් ඕල් එකේ තියෙන වාසිය BTN3 BTN4 මම බටන් හතරක් ඇඩ් කරා. horizontal box එකක්. horizontal box layout එකක් තියෙනවා. You can see. යා ඊට මැද නම් කකුල ගන්නවා. හැබැයි යා ඊළඟ ලයින් වලට දාන්නේ නැහැ. මතකද අපිට ස්විං වල තියුණා. ඊට පස්සේ තියුණාම ඊළඟ ලයින් එකට දාන්න layout එක. මේක එහෙම ගන්න නෙමෙයි. එයා හන්දෙස්සෙම ඉන්නේ horizontal box එකක් විදියට. So this is good for a toolbox or something like that. Right. So that is horizontal box layout. දැන් ඔයාලට B box එක තේරෙන්න ඕන නිකම්ම. හරි. H box එක දාන්නවා නම් අරකම අරගෙන අපිට B box කරා නම් හරි නේද? ඔච්චරයි ගන්න තියෙන්නේ. තව පොඩ්ඩක් හද. B box layout demo. Vertical box layout. දැන් මේක තේරෙන්න ගත්තට පස්සේ ඔයා මම ඕනෙත් නෑ ඊට පස්සේ ක්ලාස් එකේ ඔයාලට තනියෙන් නෝට් එකක් අරගෙන කරගන්න පුළුවන් වෙන තත්ත්වයටපත් වෙනවා. ඒකනේ වෙන්න ඕන අන්තිමට. Right, so let's call it VBox. And now we are going to create a Vbox. Right. So here I'm going to import the Vbox. Now it's a vertical box. Same code then part තමයි add වෙන්නේ. You can see. එයා කොහොම හරි ඔක ඇතුලේ ඉන්නවා මිසක් වැහෙනවා මිසක් එයා ඊළඟ lines වලට එන්නේ නැහැ. So that is a Vbox layout. Of course we haven't done any event handling. Event handling can be done only. Right, so that is the second layout. Sorry, third layout. So then we have the grid pane layout. මතකද අපි grid pane layout එක තමයි අර button දැන් මේ අර කැල් එකක් එහෙම හදන්න හොඳයි කිව්වේ. Right, so you have the rows separately and the columns also. Okay, row එකේ වල columns දාන්න පුළුවන්. So let's create a grid pane layout also. Grid pane layout. So again we have created two labels and now we have created two text fields and a button. Right, on the button එකත් අතර තියෙනවා දැන් ටික two labels, two text fields, first name text box, last name text box, and a button. Right, now we have created grid pane layout and we have set it to the scene. Okay, scene eකට set කරලා තියෙන grid pane layout එක width and height we have set. Now we have 3 rows, add row, right? 0th row, first row, second row. For the 0th row we have added label 1 and text field 1. For second row, index again done second row කියලා, label 2 and text field 2. For the third row, next row, we have added that button. So we have called it submit. Right? Then we have set the scene and show. Make it lazy. Right? අපි මෙතන spacing එහෙම කරේ නැහැ. Spacing එහෙම කළා හදන්න පුළුවන් මේක ලස්සනට. හරි. මෙතන අපි layout එක ගැන කතා කරනවා විතරයි. So we are not going to do any spacing and other things. ඒකට CSS තියෙන්නේ ඒවට තමයි. CSS වලත් අපිට පුළුවන් මේවා ලස්සනට spacing එහෙම කරන්න. හරි. නැත්නම් මෙහෙමත් මෙතන පුළුවන්. ඒකේ තියෙන methods වලින් අපිට පුළුවන් මේ horizontal gap එක vertical gap එකෙම set කරන්න පුළුවන් ඕන නම් set h gap set v gap එහෙම කියලා set h gap එක set කරලා see ටික වැඩියෙන් set කරමු හොඳට පේන්න 10 spacing එනවා දැක්කනේ ඒවා ටික ටික ඉගෙන ගන්න right right so that is the grid pane layout. So then you have the flow layout also, flow pane layout. Right. flow එක වගේ අර පොඩි යටට stack වෙනවා ඊට බඳ වෙනකොට. දැන් එහෙම උනේ නෑනේ H box එක. Right. So give me out flow pane layout කියලා. ඒකේ v gap h gap set කරලා තියෙනවා. run it and see. It's not a horizontal box, right? So when you reduce it, it will go to the next one. So there is a difference between that. Okay, flow pane. So again, what we have done, we have created this flow pane, set p cap, h cap, etc., and we have added a button. එතනම හදලා තියෙන්නේ. දැන් සාමාන්‍ය විදිහට add කරලා යන්න තියෙන්නේ. හරි. You can add any number of things. Right, so that is flow pane. Right, තව ටිකක් පොතන තියෙනවා අපි ඔක්කොම කතා කරේ නෑ. ඔයාලට දැන් idea එකක් එන්න ඕන. හරි. Right, so you must have now very good idea about what is this. Okay. Right, now the controls. Right, now the controls are there. Already we have used those controls, right? We have used labels, we have used buttons. Buttons up use kara button not image එහෙම set කරන්න පුළුවන්. path එක දෙන්න ඕනේ image එක තියෙන තැන හරියට. හරි. Button you can have images also to the button. ඒවා ඉතින් swing වලක් තියෙනවා. හරි. Text fields you can add. We already had text fields, so you can have password field, right? So this is an example that demonstrate some of those concepts. Okay, so let's do this one also. Copy. I will be giving the code at the end to the both the WhatsApp group. So it has few labels, few text fields, password field, and we are using grid pane. That's a rows. Grid pane තමයි ගොඩක් අර form හදන්න හොඳම එක. මෙතන h cap එහෙම නම් දාලා නැහැ. එක ගොඩේ වැටෙయ్యා. You can see some text box. This is a password text box, password field, and submit button. No event handling done. මේක layout එක මේවා කරලා මම h cap v cap අදාළ මුකුත් කරලා නැහැ. මේ දෙපැත්තෙන් ඉඳ තියන්නේ ඒවා කරලා නැහැ. Right. So then you have the radio buttons. Right. You have the radio buttons. So let's first code this, then I will explain. Radio button ලොකු වෙනසක් නැහැ. හැබැයි button ටික group කරන්න ඕන. New Java class. Right, look at how to work with the radio buttons. So we have created some radio buttons. Okay, 3 radio buttons. We have called it button 1, button 2, button 3. Okay, so then we have created a group. We call it toggle group. Now remember, you know that when one radio button is ticked, others in the same group must be unticked. So it knows that they are a group. We use the same concept in Javafx, Swing also. So you have to add it to a and for each and every button we have to say that you are in the same group, right? Group object එක හදලා ඒ group එක තමයි කියලා කියනවා. Then they know that they are in the same group. Okay, that's very easy. Then of course here we are using our Vbox layout with spacing, and we have added all the buttons using add all method. Then we have set the scene and title. Right? Event handling මුත් කරේ නැහැ මෙතන. Just the radio buttons are there. Right? So few radio buttons are there. Right? So that is how you add radio buttons. Okay. Right. So that is how you add set of radio buttons. So then check boxes. Now you don't have to group it, right? Group it because check boxes are independent, right? Event handling කළා නෑ මෙතන. So we have added few checkboxes to the layout. We are using Hbox layout, okay, and that's it. Just to demonstrate that how to add a checkbox. ඉතින් ඔයගේ application එක ඇතුලේ ඔක්කොම කලවමන හම්බ වෙයි ළඟට. Right, ඒ ටික මෙහෙම දාලා තියෙන්නේ. Right, so you can select multiple as well. Okay. Right, so that is how we add checkboxes. Okay, checkboxes. So if you need more examples, the best place is, there are really good two tutorials, really good tutorials. One is Javafx tutorial, really good tutorial. This is the best tutorial I can see about Javafx. I use this tutorial when I prepare your note, and I took a lot of examples from their tutorial. Right, so very detailed tutorial. Okay, so I will put up that one also, because it has so many other concepts. If you are really interested about developing serious Javafx applications. Right, so the other thing is Java 2S site. 2S site, it has code, a lot of code examples. Just search for Javafx how to. Okay, Javafx how to. So there are plenty of examples there. Okay, for each and every category there are plenty of examples, even table views, etc. Okay, so that is one of the two main resources that you can use. Okay, right, so let's continue with our discussion also. Right, now you know how to add a checkbox as well. Then combo box. Right, so I will explain that also, how to add combo box. We have done all those things under swing also. Swing වල කරපු විදිහට පොඩි අතර මේවා වෙන කිසි වෙනසක් නැහැ. widgets වලට ගියාම නම් ලොකු වෙනසක් ඇත්තෙම නැහැ. හරි. ඉතින් ඔක වෙන language එකකට ගියත් ඔහම තමයි ආ. Right, so we have the launch method. Now we have a combo box object. To that combo box we have to send, right, it's again using generics. We have to say we are sending string as the array. To that combo box, it's a combo box object. Okay, so then to that combo box there's a method called get items, and there's add all. To that you can send your string array. Combo box එකේ Pane තොට මේ engineering, medicine, accounting, management දාලා තියෙන්නේ. So then if you want you can set the editable true also. Then we have group layout. Sorry, we have group. We have not created our own layout, so therefore we are just adding it to the root. To the root we are adding our combo box, and we are setting the scene and showing the show. මෙතන පොඩි layout එක පොඩ්ඩක් වෙනස් විදිහට හදලා තියෙන්නේ. copy paste කරලා ගත්ත code එකනේ. ඒගොල්ලෝ built in layout එකක් use කරලා තියෙන්නේ. හරි. built in layout එකක්. group කියන layout එක use කරලා තියෙන්නේ ඒගොල්ලෝ. හරි. මම මේ copy paste කරන්න ගත්ත code එක. Right, so let's run it and see. Again, no event handling done. This is just to get you the understanding about the widgets. You can see. ඔයාලට මෙතන edit කරන්න දීලා තියෙන්නේ. ඔයාලට කැමති එකක් type කරන්න දීලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒක දැන් set editable true කිව්වා. ඒකට ඒක තමයි දැන් select කරලා. ඒක තමයි වාගේ යන්නේ. හරි. සාමාන්‍ය එහෙම කරන්නේ නැහැ බොහෝ විට. ඒක කරේ මම set editable true හන්දා. හරි. So මේක false කරොත් එහෙම වෙන්නේ නැහැ. හරි. by default මම ඉඳන false තමයි. Yeah. Now of course we have to select whatever available in the list. You can't type anything. Now you can see you can't type anything. What type can then select right. So that is how you work with combo boxes. Right. So then we have the event handling. Right. So remember we didn't do any event handling so far. Though we are adding combo boxes, check boxes, radio buttons, we were not doing anything. So we can do event handling, right? Event handling. It depends on which type of events you are interested. Are you interested in mouse events like mouse over, mouse click, or are you interested in actions like click on buttons, click on a radio button, click on a checkbox, or are you interested in key events like when you type a key in a text box, etc. Right? So depending on that, you have to select the correct listener or the correct interface. Right? So then those actions will be automatically called by your JDK or the Javafx runtime environment. So they have come up with very sophisticated event handling mechanism, but we are not going to discuss those things, those advanced concepts, because they have a concept called event chains also, where not only one, so the same event can be notified to multiple event handling routines, but we are not interested about that right now or in your case. But if you are a professional software developer doing some commercial development, you may have to use those features. Okay, right. So there's something called event handlers, filters, etc. Because it can be handled at different levels. These are some possible events or some popular events, pretty much the same names as the swing events or Java FWT events, like on mouse centered, on mouse release, right? On key press, blah blah blah, even on zoom, on scroll. So those kind of events are also there here. Okay, so this one anyway we did, right? So that is having a button, and we are having the event handler which is taking action event. Okay, action event. And here we have the handle method with action event. Event එකේ සමහර දේවල් උඩට මෙතනින් ගන්න පුළුවන්. මෙතන අපි මුත් පාවිච්චි කරේ නෑ. ඒක swing වලත් එහෙමයි. හරි. So anyway, this example we did, right? This is the first example where we handle the button click of a button. Okay. Right. So now let's do a different example. Say I am interested about the radio buttons. Okay. දැන් අර කලින් එක්සැම්පල් එකම තමයි රේඩියෝ බටන් ටික දාලා ඉවරලා මොකද කරන්නේ? ඉවෙන්ට් හැන්ඩලින් උත් කරන්නයි හදන්නේ. හරි? Right, so let's I will first copy paste and then I will explain. Okay. And let's call it radio button events. Radio buttons කියලා දාලා තියෙනවා. right. බලන්න මොකක්ද කරලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා බලන්න. then we will run it. right. So we are setting the title for the stage and we have tile pane. ඔන්න වෙන එක තව එකක් කරන් තියෙනවා. tile pane එකක් කරන් තියෙනවා. right. So we have toggle group. And we are setting the toggle group and we have 3 radio buttons, male, female, others, and we are setting all these radio buttons are having the same toggle group, so that means they are in the same group. Right? So these three radio buttons are in the same group. Okay, just you have to create a toggle group and make sure that they are in the same group. Then to our tile pane, we have added all the radio buttons, right? R1, R2, R3, and of course we have a label as well. This is a radio button exercise and nothing selected කියලා දැන්ට තියෙනවා. select වුණාම අල්ල ගන්න හදන event එක. හරි. Then of course we have scene created, giving that layout, right? And now we are adding a listener. හරි. listener කෙනෙක් add කරනවා. මෙතන පොඩ්ඩක් code එක එහාට මෙහාට පැන්නා. මෙන්න එන්න ඕන පහලට. මෙන්න මෙහෙ ගිහිල්ලානේ. notepad එකට දාලා ගමුද? එහෙම පයින්නවා code එක. ආයෙත් මේකට format කරනවා. format කියලා තියෙනවා බලන්න. මම කාටද පේනවද කියලා code format කරන option එක IntelliJ පාවිච්චි කරන කෙනෙක්. code reformat code reformat උනේ නෑනේ. නරන විදියට ටැබ් වගේක් කරලා තියෙනවා කොහේ හරි. මේ shift tab එක ගන්න. යා මේ පැත්තට ගන්න ඕන නම් shift එකත් එක්ක tab එක වන්නේ. නැත්නම් නිකන් tab එක. හරි. නිකන් tab එක දකුණට shift tab එක වමට. හරි. මම හිතන්නේ කට්ටිය මේ පැත්තට ආවා කියලා යන්තම්. මම හරියටම set කරලා නෑ දෙන්න. Right. So now you can see that now we are adding the event handling is done to this toggle group, not for individual radios, because then it's unnecessary work. If you want to do the event handling for each and every radio button separately, because these radio buttons are going to operate as a group, so therefore we are doing the event handling to the this group. This is somewhat different from the way we do it in swing. Swing වලට වඩා මම හොඳ විදියක් කරලා තියෙනවා. එයා කියනවා group එකට අපි event handling කරමු කියලා. toggle group එකට. හරි. Right. So there we have to add the listener, and here you can see it's a change listener. දැක්කද? අපි නේ decide කරන්නේ. හරි. එයා කියලා තින්නේ ඕන listener කෙනෙක් එවන්න කියලානේ. So here we are creating a anonymous object of a change listener. Okay? change listener. ඉතින් මේ code කැලේ එයා ලියලා දෙන්නේ ඇත්තටම. ආට මුකුත් කරන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. හරි මේක ගැන ඕනටදී worry වෙන්නත් එපා. ඕනටදී හොයන්න යන්නත් එපා. 100% තේරුම් ගන්න යන්න එපා දැනට. හරි. මොකද්ද මේ වෙන්නේ කියලා. හරි. ඔයා මෙතන new change listener කියලා ගහව ගමන් මේ code කැලේ structure එක ගහලා දෙනවා යා. හරි. structure එක ගහලා දෙනවා මේ method එකත් එක්ක. හරි. මම මොන ලියලා පෙන්නන්න. new change listener කියලා ගහපුවම යක් structure එක ගහලා දෙයි. හරි ආ code එක ඔක්කොම ලියලා දෙන. අතට code එක ලියන්න විතරට තියෙනවා. ඒක අන්න already ඕගෙන worry වෙන්න එපා. and I'm going to undo. right. so අර තියෙන මේ ඇතුලේ තියෙන code එක ලියන්න විතරයි. right. so now whenever you click on a radio button, any of the radio button in that group, this event will be fired. This event will be fired. So here what we are doing is, remember this has a parameter, right? You have parameter. There you can get which one is ticked, which one is ticked out of the given radio buttons by calling the get selected toggle. ඉතින් ඔක කටපාඩම් කරන්න පුත් ඕනේ නැහැ. ඔයාලට කරන්නේ copy paste කරලා code එක ලියන එක අපි කරන්නේ. හරි. ඊට පස්සේ අපි බලනවා එයා radio button එකට අපිට cast කරගන්න පුළුවන්. අපිට පුළුවන් ආගේ text එක එහෙම ගන්න. ඊට පස්සේ අපි label එකේ set කරනවා. එයාගේ text එක set කරනවා label එකට. එතකොට අපි පැටනවා කොයි එකද tick කරේ කියලා. ඉතින් මේක just to demonstrate. Okay. Right. Radio button එකේ label එක අරගෙන අපි යට තියෙන label එකට set කරනවා. එතකොට අපි දන්නවා මේක තමයි tick කරේ කියලා. right බලන්න වැඩේ වෙනවද කියලා. This says nothing selected. Now you can see female selected, male selected, other selected. දැන් අපිට මේ event එක fire වෙනවා සහ අපි දන්නවා event එකේදී සමහරවිට මේක tick කරද්දී යට තියෙන වෙනස්කම් කරන්න වෙනවා අපිට. වෙන check box එනවා නම් ආයෙ අපිට දැන් මේක ඇතුළේ ලියන්න පුළුවන්. මොකද අපිට පුළුවන් scene graph එකට add කරන්න, scene graph එකෙන් remove කරන්න වගේ දේවල්. හරි. Right. So that is a different event. So we have to add a change listener as our now here it is not a set, it is selected toggle property. කලින් තියෙන set action එක ගන්න select toggle property කියලා තමයි අපි anonymous class object එක දාන්නේ. Right. So then if you want to handle events of a drop down or the combo box, so that is also there. Samanti combo box, radio button, check box, button, text box. ඔය ටිකේ event handle කරන වෙනව handle කරන්න ඊට පස්සේ ඕන menu එක. So let's create one more class. මෙතන ඉන්න batch 4 අයට මේක චුට්ටක් හිමින් වදින්නේ. මොකද ඒගොල්ලන්ට swing කරේ ගිය සතියෙම නේද? හැබැයි batch 2 අයට swing කළා දැන් ගොඩක් දවස්. ඒගොල්ලන්ට මේක හොඳට දැන් swing හොඳට මොනවාද ඒකට කියන්නේ? පදම් වෙලා නම් තියෙන්නේ දැන් මේක නිකම්ම වදින්න ඕන. So this is another example, combo box. Right? So you can see that we have created a string array and we are creating combo box. And we are setting the string array as part of the we are adding the string array to the combo box so that the combo box will have those strings. Then here you can see we are going for on action. මොකද මේක බටන් එකක් වගේනේ. බටන් එකේ කරම එකමයි කරේ. on action එකට තමයි ගියේ. මේ කෝඩ් ගැන ඕනට ඩි worry වෙන්න එපා. මේ කෝඩ් කැලේ ලියලා දෙయ్యා. on action කියලා action event එක මේ ටික ලියලා දෙනවා. right? අයිකෙන් අපි කරලා තියෙන කොයි එකද සිලෙක්ට් කරලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා අරගෙන යට ලේබල් එකට සෙට් කරනවා. හරි. සිලෙක්ට් කරපු එක ගන්න අපිට ඕන. You can see you selected market medicine. Right. You selected management. එතකොට ඒ event එක fire වෙනවා. දැන් event එක fire වෙනවා කියලා අපි දන්නවා කවද ගත්තේ කියලා. ඒක තමයි කරගන්න. හරි දැන් මේ කෝඩ් ගැන ඕනටඩි හොයන්න ඕනෙත් නෑ ඇත්තටම ඔයා. මොකද එහෙම හොයන්න ගියොත් එහෙම ඔයාලට software develop කරන්න වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඔයාලට කරන්න වෙන්නේ මෙන්න මේක ඉතා වැදගත්තා. So there are two type of degrees. ගොඩක් අය මේක වරද්ද ගන්නවා. හරි ඉගෙන ගත්තට මොකද ඉගෙන ගන්නේ මොනවද කියලා දන්නේ නැහැ. හරි. So there are two type of degrees. One type of degrees ඔයගොල්ලෝ යන්නේ physical science යනවා කියලා කට්ටිය යන්නේ. Physical science යනවා, bio science යනවා, ආර්ට් කරන්න යනවා නේද? යන්නේ එකේ කට්ටියද ආර්ට් කරන්න කට්ටිය අපි අයින් කළා දාමු. ඒගොල්ලෝ යන්නේ සින්දු කියන්න නම් මොනක් කරන්නනේ? හරි නටන්න සින්දු කියන්න වගේ ගිහිල්ලා ඒ වගේ ගිහිල්ලා ඊට පස්සේ මින් එනවා මේ කන්තෝරු ජොබ් එකක් හොයාගෙන. නැටුවට සල්ලි හම්බ වෙන්නේ නැහැ කියලා. ඒක ඒගොල්ලෝ කරන්නේ වෙන ප්‍රොඩක්ට් නේ. දැන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඉතින් වෙන රටවල්වත් මෙච්චර ආර්ට් කරන්න ඉන්නවා කියලා. මගුලක් ඉන්නවා ආර්ට් කරන්න. ආර්ට් කරන්නේ ආර්ට් කරන කට්ටිය. ලංකාවේ ආර්ට් කරන්නේ කියන්නේ කුණුහරුප මතක් වෙනවා මට. කො අපේ මේක ආවේ නැහැ. මේක තනිකරම ලංකාව කියන්නේ තනිකරම නාට්‍ය ශාලාවක්නේ නේද? මෙහෙ ඔක්කොමලා කරන්නේ ආර්ට් හැමතැනම ආර්ට් ෆැකල්ටි. ඊට පස්සේ ආර්ට් ෆැකල්ටි වල හිටපු උන්ව නඩත්තු කරන්න ඕන අනිත් ඒවා ටික එකතු වෙලා. right. So here කියන්නේ ටික එකක් තමයි දුන්නා. මේ මගුලත් එක්ක හරි. Right. Right. කියන්න ගියේ. So there are two type of faculties. So some people go for physical science, bioscience, etc. And others go for engineering, technology. මේ පැත්තේ යනවා. මේගොල්ලන්ට පුළුවන් ඔය හැම එකම හොය යන්න. Bioscience කරන අයට, physical science කරන අයට, that must be their task. Research oriented, academic. But we don't have much time to look for the reasons and blah blah blah. Engineering people, because we have a lot of tasks to do. අපිට තියෙන building හදන්න ඕන, power plant හදන්න ඕන, software හදන්න ඕන. අපිට මේ හැම දෙයක්ම වෙන විදිය තේරුම් ගන්න ගියොත් එහෙම අපිට මෙලෝ මගුලක් නොකර ඔහේ ඉන්න වෙනවා. හරි ඒ වර්තයි මේගොල්ලෝ ඉන්නේ. වෙන දේවල් හොය අලුත් දේවල් රිසර්ච් කර මම කියන්නේ ඒගොල්ලෝ වැරදි නෙමෙයි. ඒගොල්ලෝ වෙනම කොටසක්. හරි ඒගොල්ලන්ට ඉතින් ලොකු පඩි හම්බෙන්නේ නැහැ සමහරවිට. එයා ඇකඩමික් පැත්තේ උඩටම ගියොත් හම්බ වෙනවා. ડોක්ටර් කෙනෙක් එහෙම වුණොත්. හරි ඒගොල්ලෝ ඉන්නේ ඒවට තමයි රිසර්ච් කරන්න වගේ දේවල් වලට. හරි ලැබ් වල හැබැයි අපිට තියෙනවා ඊට වැඩිය වැඩ. අපිට තියෙනවා ඉක්මනට දේවල් හදන්න. එතකොට අපිට මෙතන ඔක්කොම තේරුම් ගන්න ගියොත් එහෙම A to Z ම හරි 100% තේරුම් ගන්න ගියොත් අන්තිමට ඔයාලා දවසේ කරපු වැඩක් නැහැ. වැඩක් නැහැ. ඔයා මේක තේරුම් ගන්න කල්පනා කරලා තියෙනවා. අනිත් එක අපි මේගොල්ලෝ වගේ තේරුම් ගන්නකම් බලන් ඉන්නේ. අපි ඒ වැඩේ ඒ ලෙවල් එකට දෙනවා. හරි. ඕගොල්ලෝ Javafx framework එක හදන්න අපි මේක use කරන්න. ඕගොල්ලෝ අපිට කියන්නේ කොහොමද use කරන්න කියලා අපි use කරනවා. හරි. නැතු අපිටත් බෑ මේ Javafx framework හදා දෙන්න. අපිට දිනවා system develop කරන්න. ඒ වගේ එක levels වල engineersලා තම තමන්ගේ වැඩේ කරගෙන යන එකයි කරන්නේ. ඒගොල්ලෝ ඕනට වැඩි worry වෙන්නේ නැහැ මේ යට level වල මොනවද කරලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා හොයන්න. මම කියන්නේ හොයන්න එපා කියන එක නෙමෙයි. ඕනට වැඩි හොයන්න යන්න එපා කියලා. ඕනට වැඩි හොයන්න ගියොත් එහම ආඩ ඔයාගේ ජොබ් එක කරන්න බැරි වෙනවා. හොඳට මතක තියාගන්න. මේ ගොඩාක් කට්ටිය software engineering කරන්න යනවා companies වලට. හැබැයි ඒගොල්ලන්ට engineering mindset එක ඔලුවට දාලාම නැහැ. මොකද ඉස්කෝලවල ඕගොල්ලන්ට engineersලා පේන්නේ නැහැනේ. ඉස්කෝලවල ඕගොල්ලන්ට A level maths උගන්වන්නේ engineers නෙමෙයි physical science කරපු අය. ඉස්කෝලේ වලට bioscience උගන්වන්නේ bioscience කරපු අය. zoology botany උගන්වන්නේ engineersලා උගන්වන්නේ නැහැ. දැන් ඔන්න ටිකක් හොඳයි ටෙක්නොලොජි වලට ඔන්න engineersලා ක්ලාස් එහෙම කරන්න පටන් ගන්න තියෙනවා. හරි ඔක අපිට තියච්ච ලොකු ප්‍රශ්නයක්. හරි ලොකු ප්‍රශ්නයක්. ඉස්කෝලවල ඕගොල්ලෝ දකින්නේ නැහැ engineersලා. හැබැයි හැමෝම try කරනවා engineersලා වෙන්න. හැබැයි ඔයා engineersලාගෙන් නෙමෙයි ඉගෙනගෙන තියෙන්නේ මෙච්චර කාලෙ. හරි එතකොට engineersලාගේ ඉගෙන ගන්න නැතුව යුනිවර්සිටි එකේ ඇතුලේ තමයි එකපාරට engineersලාගේ ඉගෙන ගන්න පටන් ගන්න. හරි එතකොට ඒක සමානලාට එතකොට tool එතකොට ඔයාව දැන් අර විදිහට mindset එක හදලා අරගොල්ලෝ තියෙන්නේ. මොකද ඒගොල්ලෝ engineers නෙමෙයිනේ. ඒගොල්ලෝ academic විදිහට mindset එක හදලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ විදිහට හිමින් වැඩ කරන හරි. මොකද ඒගොල්ලෝ ටික හිමින් තමයි වැඩ කරන්නේ. engineersත් එහෙම හිමින් වැඩ කරන්න බෑ. හරි. ඒතකොට ඔයා මේ mindset එකට එන්න ඕනේ. නැත්තම් job එකට එනවා engineering. එයා වැඩ කරන්නේ හරියට scientist කෙනෙක් වගේ. දැන් ඔය engineer කෙනෙක් විදිහට scientist කෙනෙක් වගේ වැඩ කරන්න බෑ. එහෙනම් scientist කරන්න. නේද? ඕනට වැඩි හොයන්න එපා. හොයන්න level එකකට A level එකෙන් එහාට යන්න එපා. හරි A level එකෙන් එහාට යන්න එපා. එහෙම ගියොත් එහෙම ආට වැඩ කරන්න බැරි වෙනවා. කවන්න ඉගෙන ගන්න කාලේ යන්න. හරි මං කියන්නේ ඉගෙන ගන්න කාලේ ගියාට කවන්නේ මට ඕන තරම් ටයිම් තියෙනවා. හැබැයි ජොබ් එකට ගියාට පස්සේ හරි ඔයා ටික ඔයාගේ ලේ එකේ ඉන්න ඕන. නැත්නම් ඔයාට ලොකු වැඩක් ඔයාට දවස් වැඩ ටික කරගන්න බැරි වෙනවා. ගොඩක් අය කියනවානේ දැන් software developers වලට තියෙන ලොකු ප්‍රශ්නයක් තමයි මේ software developers කියන අපිට වෙලා ගෙදර එන්න වෙලාවක් නැහැ. රෑ වෙලා වැඩ ඇරලා ඉන්නේ. හරි. ඔකට එක හේතුවක් තමයි විශේෂයෙන්ම ලංකාවේ software engineers වලට තියෙන scientist ලගේ mindset එක. හරි scientist ලගේ mindset එකෙන් එයා ඇතුළේ ගිහලා ඔය ඉන්නවා. ඔය ඉන්නවා අන්තිමට එයා තමන්ට දීපු වැඩ ටික කරන්නේ නැහැ. වැඩ ටික කරන්න වෙලාවක් නැහැ නේ මේක ඇතුළේ රිසර්ච් කරනවානේ. ඉගෙන ගන්න කාලේ ඕන දෙයක් කරන්න. අස්වල් මුල්වල් ඕන දෙයක් හොයන්න මට තාම වෙලා තියෙනවනේ. මට තාම පඩි ගවන්න නැහැ නේ ආයතනයකින්. පඩි ගවන්න ගත්තට පස්සේ ඔයාට ලක්ෂයක් දෙකක් පඩිය දෙන්නේ එකකින් වැඩක් බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්න. ඔයාට රිසර්ච් කරන්න නෙමෙයි. හරි. එතනදී ඔයාට අග්ගාලා අනවශ්‍ය විදියට හොයන්න යන්න නැතුව ඔයාගේ ලෙවල් එකේ ඉඳන් වැඩේ කරන්න. යට ලෙවල් එකේ මිනිස්සු වැඩේ කරලා දෙනවා කියලා වැඩේ විශ්වාස කරන්න. මොකද එතන තියෙන ඉංජිනේර්ස්ලානේ ඒගොල්ලෝ ඒ ලෙවල් එකේ වැඩේ ඒගොල්ලෝ කරලා දෙයි. ඒගොල්ලෝ දැන් හොයන්නේ නැහැ නේ මේකෙන් software develop කරන විදිය. ඔයාට තියෙන්නේ දැන් මේ කෝඩ් එකක් දුන්නාට පස්සේ මේ කෝඩ් එක 100% නැත වෙනවට කමන්නේ ඔයාගේ වැඩේ ඇතුළේ. ඔයාට වැඩේ කරගන්න බැරි වෙච්ච තැන තමයි ඔයා ගිහලා බලන්න ඕනේ මොකද්ද ඇත්තට මෙතනින් වෙන්නේ කියලා. හරි ඇත්තටම ඔයාලට මේ ඉවෙන්ට් එකත් එක්ක රෙඩිමේඩ් වැඩේ වෙනවනම් එච්චරයි. ඒ කෝඩ් කැල කොපි පේස්ට් කරා ඔයා වැඩේ කරගෙන ගියා. හරි. හැබැයි ඔයාට කොපි පේස්ට් කරලා වැඩේ කරගන්න බැරි ලෙවල් එකට ගියාම අන්න එතකොට කල්පනා කරලා බලන්න ඕන මේකත් තේරුම් ගත්තේ නැත්නම් මට මේ වැඩේ කරන්න බෑ කියලා. ඉතින් ඒක ඔයා ටික ටික ඒවා කරගන්න. ටික ටික ඔයා ඒවා ඒ ලෙවල් එකට යයි ටික ටික ඒවා ඉගෙන ගන්න. හරි. So that is very important. Engineers mindset and scientist mindset. So scientist mindset is different. ඒගොල්ලෝ හිමින් perfect කර එන කට්ටිය engineers ට perfect කර ඉන්නේ වැඩේ කරන. ඔයගොල්ලෝ දන්නවනේ genetically engineer products තියෙනවා නේද? දැන් genetically engineered කරපු කෑම තියෙනවා නේද? Apple තියෙනවා, ලොකු දොඩම් තියෙනවා, ජම්බෝල වගේ. මිනිස්සු කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? කන්න එපා ඕවා. ඇයි ඒ? කන එක භයානකයි. ඒවා හදලා තියෙන engineersලා. genetically engineered. genetically engineered කියන්නේ ගෙඩිය ලොකු වෙනවා නම් අපිට මොන මකුලක් වුණත් කමන්නේ නැහැ. අපි ඕක කොහොම වුණාද කියලා හොයන්න යන්නේ නැහැ. engineersලානේ. engineersලා එහෙම තමයි. engineersලාට වේගෙන් වැඩේ කරගෙන යන්න ඕන. රිසර්ච් කරන්න ඕන සයන්ටිස්ට්ලා. මේකේ තියෙන අතුරු ප්‍රතිඵල අනම්මනම් අපි ඔන්න දැන් ගෙඩිය ලොකුට හදලා දීලා තියෙන්නේ. හරි? because it is genetically engineered. ඒකට කියන්නේ නැහැ genetically science මොකක් හරි කියලා නේද? ඒකට කියන්නේ genetically engineered කියලා. engineering කරනවා කියන්නේ වැඩේ වෙනවා නම් එච්චරයි. හරි? හොයන එක දෙනවා සයන්ටිස්ට්ලාට. කොහොමද උනේ කියලා ඕකේ තියෙන අතුරු ප්‍රතිඵල හොයපල්ලා කියලා. හරි? Right. So have that mindset. Okay? But not right now when you are working. When you go to the field. Okay? Of course, if you want to be a software engineer or network engineer or something like that. Right. So now we have done with the event handling. Right. So we have few more topics to cover. How to work with 2D, how to add some effects, flash වගේ Qt animation එකක් වගේ කරන්නේ කොහොමද? Transformations කරන්නේ කොහොමද වගේ ඒවා අපි ඒවා so we are going to do those tomorrow.